The following video has been created without the use of AI. Please support your human content creators by liking the video and commenting something down below. Subscribing is optional. Now please, enjoy the show. Some fates in the Playtime factory were strange. Some horrific, but none were as unique as Project Candlestick. A semi-failed, slightly dangerous toy called Marina Ballerina was a very special doll for girls, and that came with the fact that the toy had no hair. The intended gimmick for the doll was that the hair would come from the owner by pouring different colored and scented metal-tipped wax on the doll's head and then chiseling it into the correct shape. It was a sales hit. The doll came with a DIY wax melting kit. The educational purpose to teach kids the joy of candle making. By first introducing them to the concept of wax and candles, and then offering a fun, creative toy to experiment with melted wax. Marina Ballerina even had a cartoon which played in a world with no light, and things that gave light, such as candles, were highly sought after resources. A little literally dark for a show aimed at elementary school girls, but it managed to find its niche. But about a year after the release of the doll, the first lawsuits came. Burned fingers, bubbling skin from touching the hot metal, and a little girl managed to burn down her entire apartment complex. She claimed at the local news that she just tried to make her ballerina's hair as long as possible. And so, the toy was discontinued just 2 years after hitting the market. But the impact of the doll was strong and important enough that she would get her very own Bigger Bodies version in the Playtime factory, in the hopes to create a safer relaunch. But of course, the experiments, the inhuman way the living toys were treated, and most importantly, the era of joy happened. Safe to say, Marina Ballerina would never hit store shelves ever again. But one Bigger Bodies toy, deep within the Playtime factory, was still alive. You. And you were very important for the survival of the toys in the factory. To the point to where you resided in a neutral area. The prototype avoided you in general. His minions worshipped you as a saint, and the free toys of Safe Haven and small toy tribes in the upper sections, they saw you as a savior. The light bringer, they called you. But the reality of your existence was bleak, to say the least. Your body was encased by white, tasteless, scentless wax. Your head and face diligently chiseled free every day so you wouldn't die of asphyxiation by a group of prototype loyal boogie bots who declared you their saint. Ending up in this situation due to your body constantly producing thick globs of semi-melted wax growing out of your head like hair, gluing you to the wall of your resting place. The heat of hundreds of candles keeping you warm as you slept 90% of the day, only for occasionally having someone break pieces off of you to turn into candles. But there was one light in the darkness. One thing that returned the glimmer into your eyes. Doey the doorman. He came visiting you every once in a while, not to harvest your wax, not to make a candle, no, just to talk and to feed you. Not that there was much to speak about. Most of the time, your talks were just a handful of wonderful, beautiful hours spent in absolute silence. Him just sitting there with a warm smile, while you, vaguely aware of your surroundings, smiled back weakly. Today was one of these days. With closed eyes, you smiled at his company, while the wax residue cracked under his weight. The area you were in used to be a cistern. But aside from a caved-in entrance that let in artificial light from the prison area above, all entrances that used to flow sewage water from here have been closed up by your never-ending wax creation. You had ended up originally in this situation because you tried to escape from the chaos of the Hour of Joy. In fact, it was that very cave-in that you had escaped through. And here you had slumbered for 2 years, during which the wax grew, until the hunger awoke you, and being half stuck in wax. If the prototype on the hunt for Poppy hadn't come through, you would have starved or asphyxiated. It was him who propped you up in the way that you are now. Even though he saved your life, you weren't loyal to him. You're loyal to none of the factions warring beneath the factory, as you are far removed from it all. The wax around your body creaked with every deep breath you took, while Doey sat down beneath you, pulling his head back to look up at you. He smiled gently. "Morning," he said. You opened your mouth, but your waxy salvia only allowed for a big bubble to pop, and you both chuckled in response. It was as if every liquid inside your body had just enough wax in it to be of an inconvenience to you. The boss almost didn't let me in this time. You nodded, creating a few cracks on your scalp. Apparently I come to visit often, and they're getting suspicious. And that they're gonna inform the prototype to increase his own visits. The prototype never visited you. The bots were just crazy. But I have been thinking. We do that a lot? You croaked. He continued his vigil silently. And then, he suddenly stood up. You could feel his movements as small vibrations in the wax. I was wondering, what do you think of your guards? You very slightly opened your eyes to look back at him. Keep my face in. But can't you do it yourself? You tried pushing against the wax to demonstrate, but it was not possible. What I mean is, if you could keep yourself clean, then what would you do? I would not need them. The silence that followed was deafening. And then, I'll be back. He said that in a tone that you never heard him say before. You watched your heavy-lidded eyes as he left through the opening. Time passed, and you watched the creatures coming to the cistern for wax, breaking it from your greater mass of your body. Catnap, Banzobani, small group of safe haven critters, even an automaton from Dr. Sawyer. Time passed like molasses. Doey would not return until 7 days later. He awoke you from your dreams one day, breathing heavily, scratching his back awkwardly. So, we don't have much time, he said quickly. What? He stepped aside. Guys, she's awake. Go, 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 go. Your eyes for the first time in a long time opened to their maximum size. That's how surprised you had been. As about 20 safe haven toys entered, each equipped with small hammers, pickaxes, crude tools, some knives. They all started chiseling and hammering away. But the fair, Doey, the share. Doey placed a finger on your mouth as he reached into his own body, producing a long, crude shank made from metal and duct tape. Kissy-Missy is distracting Dr. Sawyer. The medic and scout have deactivated Playcare's access elevator, and the prototype is in his laboratory as always. He then rammed the shank next to your cheek, so no one will bother us for a while. You could feel the cold metal press against your skin. You exhaled sharply. I didn't hit you, did I? No. Pick, pick. Crack, crack. Break, break. The others were attempting to get as much candle wax as possible, while Doey slowly chiseled away. And finally, for the first time in a long time, you felt something other than the pressure of wax against your plastic skin. Doey chuckled. Oh dear, that does smell bad. The smell of dead skin cells, sweat, and other bodily wastes was hitting him like a truck. Don't ruin this, you said as you touched your face, feeling over the wax that was stuck to your cheeks. You started breathing loudly and heavily through your mouth. This alone would have been enough to make your day, no, your month. This was already the greatest present you could imagine. The feeling was indescribable. You felt as if you were losing your mind. But not in the way the ferals were. More in the I can't believe I'm actually feeling my own face again sort of way. I'm going to pretend you didn't do anything to the pots, you said, knowing fully well that Doey probably ate them. And he gave you a knowing nod. Prototype? You asked questioningly. Save him will protect you no matter what. Just don't worry about it. The wax became brittle, and then, with a loud tearing sound and the noise of breaking chunks, you fell forward, foul-smelling residue covering your entire body. I can't move, you croaked loudly. Guys, she's free. That was the cue for the others to stop collecting wax and get you the hell out of there. You were picked up by multiple hands and arms and Doey. Your heart, it was racing, your toes dragging over the ground. Too much was happening. You had been so used to the wall, to the absolute nothingness of your existence, that this was beyond anything you dared dreaming of. The toys huffed, and Doey puffed as they carried you through the prison complex. The place looked so much worse than you remembered, but you didn't care. You were seeing things. It was so overwhelming that you passed out. And in the final moments of your conscience slipping away, your only thought was, I better not awake on that goddamn wall again. And when you did awake, you thought the world was falling, as it felt as if you were falling. But in actuality, you were floating. Something touched you, and you opened your eyes with a fright. You quickly realized you were in a washtub made out of colorful wood, probably do it yourself, lying in warm water. You're awake, shouted Doey's voice, excited, next to you. As you jolted up, breathing heavily, you covered your chest. Where am I? You passed out for excitement. Since you reeked, we decided to wash you. We thought you might, want that. You looked to the side, seeing a Mommy Longlegs with a sponge that was way too big for her. She smiled at you. Right. You rubbed over your throat. Without a layer of wax pressing against it, your voice sounded so much more normal and clear now. I suppose. Awkwardly you sat there, shivering slightly as Doey and Mommy cleaned you up, and removing the last bits of wax residue on your face. You turned around when they reached your chest area. Finally, you were clean, with just enough wax covering your head to make it look like you had a pixie cut. A dirty towel was wrapped around your chest, Though that was understandable, there probably wasn't a single working washing machine nearby. You sat down on a small chair inside the room you had been cleaned in. "You know," said Doey, who was standing by the door, head turned 180 degrees, still out of respect. "We warmed the water with a bunch of candles made from your wax. I thought you might find that interesting." You brushed over the semi-solid wax shell on your hand. "I assumed such." After a moment of silence, you smiled. "I'm truly grateful. I just don't know how to express it." "I just couldn't look at you suffering anymore," he said quickly. "It made me so angry whenever I looked at you." You tilted your head. "It made you angry?" No, that's not what I meant." He was so shook by you saying that his head spun around like a rubber. "Oh, I'm so sorry," he said quickly, placing a hand on his eyes. But you stood up. Even though you hadn't walked in such a long time, it still felt natural, even though the resistance of the floor was a little weird. Holding the towel with one hand, you placed your other on his cheek. "Doey," you said gently. "Your comfort was important to me," you said. "If anything, I was that bad I couldn't comfort you back. And I know you got angry." He grabbed you, pushing you against his body. "Thank you." Your heart stopped for a beat. "Thank you for being here." "You fed me. Talked to me." I admit at first it was all about the food. I tried to be appealing to you, but I didn't need to try. Isn't it always about food? Love you. He looked down at you. His expression unreadable. Right eye twitching. Like there was some inner turmoil going on. "Doey?" He closed his mouth and took a few steps away. This is awkward. Excuse me for a bit." He stepped outside the room, leaving you there dumbfounded. This wasn't like how you expected your confession to go at all. You assumed he'd kiss you, hug you, maybe try undressing you if he was a little brave. And then you heard voices coming from the door. It took about 4 minutes until you poked his head back out. His red teeth glistening in the light, and his voice was slightly deeper than usual. "Almost ready." "Doey?" Moments later he waddled back in, fingers on his mouth while his thumbs tapped against his chin. "You need to answer honestly. What exactly do you mean when you say, 'I love you'? Do you mean me as a whole? Do you mean certain aspects of me?" Confused, you tilt your head. I guess you're whole? "She means all three of us, guys," he said with relief, so quiet you didn't catch it. "What?" Nothing, I said nothing." He stepped forward, and finally, he hugged you. Your breath hitched. Feeling him like this was strange. This was due to how his body was made and felt. It vaguely was like the surface of wax, which brought up bad memories, really. And that alone made your heart beat faster, but at the same time, it was softer. Smelled different, and with the way he pushed you against him, you could feel your lips touch his dough, and he tasted much different than wax. Kind of like cookie dough, without any additional ingredients added to it. So there really was only the feeling in your mouth and the faint aftertaste of chemicals. Trying your best to get over your memories, you raised both hands and wrapped them around him, and with an unnoticeable thud, your bathrobe dropped on its own. Feeling your pointy-toed chest poke into him, he stopped moving entirely, too shocked by what was happening. But you relished in it. He was just too sweet for his own good. Slowly pulling away, you look up at him and smile. You can touch me, you know. Hey, thank you so much for watching the video until the very end. Prove you have reached this point by writing banana bread down in the comments below. But before we end the video right here, I would like to shout out all of my wonderful channel members, especially my darling stewards. We have Jaws, Melufia, Mexicat, Alison Watkins, Mystic Jade 111, Giovanna Moretti, Twilight Mia, Angry Boxman, Hella, Anonymous Weep, and Nicodemus D. Thank you very much for your generous donations. And here are all my other channel members. I'd just like to remind you that all comments made by channel members will be turned into a music video by the end of the month. So help and add to the lyrics, won't you? Thank you for your support. And thank you for watching. I'm very grateful for you to watch until the very end. Goodbye.